Mr. Speaker, and still I rise. And I rise today in the name of government of the people, by the people, for the people. I rise today because our country is nearing a moment of decision. I rise because we are at the intersection of democracy and autocracy. I rise to announce that at this moment in time, I have filed HRES 537. HRES 537 is a privileged resolution. HRES 537 has been filed because I believe that the President of the United States has committed an impeachable act.
Hey everyone, Adam here, and today we're going all in. Articles of impeachment have been formally filed against Trump, plunging the Capitol into chaos with lawmakers screaming, protesters flooding halls, and loyalists scrambling to block the proceedings. This is a genuine constitutional crisis unfolding in real time, with no going back. Let me walk you through exactly what happened over the past few days, because the speed at which this crisis has escalated is absolutely breathtaking and has caught even seasoned Washington insiders completely off guard. In just a matter of days, Representative Al Green and a coalition of Democratic lawmakers introduced new impeachment resolutions that cite Donald Trump for high crimes and misdemeanors against the Constitution and the American people. These are not vague accusations or general complaints about policies they disagree with. These are specific, detailed charges that outline exactly what Trump allegedly did wrong and why it rises to the level of impeachable conduct. The articles include obstruction of justice and unauthorized military action, and bribery and abuse of trade powers and violations of constitutional limits on presidential authority. Every single one of these charges carries enormous weight, and any single one of them could theoretically be enough to remove a president from office.
Surrounded by protesters Thursday, Democratic Congressman Al Green announced he will file articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump before Christmas.
I pledge to you, I will bring those articles of impeachment to the attention of the Congress of the United States of America before the Christmas break.
A successful impeachment is highly unlikely in a Republican-led Congress, but Democrats feel optimistic about winning the majority in next year's elections. Green emphasized he does not want to wait for a viable majority to file the articles of impeachment.
I'd love to have a majority, but the Constitution does not have a scintilla of a word in it indicating that you have to wait until you have a majority to impeach. It's just not there.
President Trump was impeached twice during his first term, but the Senate did not vote to remove him. Some Democratic leaders have refrained from supporting a third impeachment because they're concerned it would fail.
The reaction on Capitol Hill was immediate and volcanic in ways that veteran observers say they have never witnessed before in decades of covering Washington politics. Lawmakers who have served in Congress for 20 and 30 years are saying they have never seen anything like the scenes that unfolded in the hallways and on the House floor. Trump allies staged loud protests inside the Capitol building itself, something that is supposed to be prohibited by security rules. But apparently, those rules have gone out the window along with everything else. They tried to physically block access to the chambers where the impeachment proceedings were being discussed. They shouted down colleagues who were trying to speak about the charges. Meanwhile, lawmakers who support impeachment were demanding immediate action and calling for Trump's resignation and warning that the republic itself is at stake if Congress fails to act. The normal decorum and civility that is supposed to govern congressional behavior has completely collapsed in ways that nobody predicted.
There is a countdown to impeachment. I have been very patient and waiting. I thought others might want to do what has to be done, and I say it has to be done. People can differ with me. I say it has to be done. It is the only tool that we have to bring you under control, to let the world know that we are opposed to what you're doing, and we're willing to take action against you. This is it. This one word, impeachment. Mr. President, I assure you, articles of impeachment are going to be filed, and they're going to be filed in the very near future, because we cannot allow the world to believe that the Congress of the United States of America will do nothing when people are being killed in the streets under circumstances that are clearly questionable, clearly unlawful in the minds of many people. I'm one of them.
Representative Al Green, who has been one of the most persistent voices calling for Trump's removal over the years, made a stunning announcement that has set a firm deadline for action. He stated publicly that he will bring a privileged motion before the end of the year so that Congress must address presidential misconduct before the holiday recess. A privileged motion is a procedural tool that forces the House to vote on impeachment within a specified time frame. It cannot simply be ignored or tabled indefinitely the way normal legislation can be buried in committee. This means that every single member of the House of Representatives is going to have to go on record with a vote on whether Donald Trump should be impeached. There is no hiding from this. There is no ducking the question. Every representative will have to stand before their constituents and the nation and say where they stand on the most consequential question facing American democracy right now. The specific charges laid out in the House impeachment resolution are devastating in their scope and their detail and their implications for Trump's presidency.
Mr. Speaker, I take no delight in what I'm doing. I do this because I love my country. I do this because I understand that the Constitution is going to be meaningful or it will be meaningless. I do it because I understand that the President of the United States of America has a duty to consult Congress before taking this country to war. I do it because no one person should have the power to take over 300 million people to war without consulting with the Congress of the United States of America. I do this because if I do not, this authoritarian president that we currently have will continue to assume power. He has already instigated an assault on the citadel of democracy, the capital of the United States of America.
The articles outline abuse of presidential powers in ways that go far beyond normal executive action into territory that the founders specifically warned against. They cite violations of the War Powers Clause through unauthorized military strikes that were never approved by Congress as the Constitution requires. They include allegations of bribery, the exchange of official acts for personal or political benefit, which is one of the specific offenses mentioned in the Constitution as grounds for impeachment. They document obstruction of justice through interference with investigations and court proceedings. And they charge Trump with unconstitutional usurpation of Congress's authority, essentially claiming powers that belong to the legislative branch and refusing to recognize any limits on presidential action. Taken together, these articles paint a picture of a president who believes he is above the law and beyond accountability. Now, let me really dig into the specific conduct that led to these impeachment articles, because the details reveal just how far Trump has pushed beyond the boundaries of acceptable presidential behavior. One of the most explosive charges involves unauthorized military strikes in Iran that were carried out without any congressional approval or notification. The Constitution is crystal clear that the power to declare war belongs to Congress, not the president. While presidents have some latitude to respond to immediate threats and emergencies, they are not supposed to launch offensive military operations against foreign nations without congressional authorization. Trump allegedly ordered strikes that could have sparked a major regional war, and he did it without even informing congressional leaders, let alone seeking their approval. This is exactly the kind of unilateral military action that the founders were trying to prevent when they wrote the Constitution. The government shutdown that has left millions of federal workers unpaid is cited in the impeachment articles as another example of Trump's abuse of power and disregard for the welfare of the American people. A president does not have the authority to simply refuse to spend money that Congress has appropriated or to shut down the government as a political weapon to get what he wants. The Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse, the authority to decide how federal money is spent. When a president uses a shutdown to inflict pain on federal workers and the Americans who depend on federal services in order to extract political concessions, he is essentially holding the country hostage. The impeachment articles argue that this conduct represents a fundamental betrayal of the president's duty to faithfully execute the laws that Congress passes. Trump's repeated defiance of court rulings is perhaps the most troubling charge in terms of what it means for the survival of constitutional government. We talked in previous videos about Trump threatening judges and ignoring court orders and claiming that he is above the law. The impeachment articles document this pattern of judicial defiance as a systematic effort to undermine the independence of the courts and eliminate any check on presidential power. When a president decides that he can simply ignore rulings he disagrees with, when he treats the judiciary as an obstacle to be overcome rather than a co-equal branch of government to be respected, he is essentially declaring himself a dictator in all but name. The founders created 3 separate branches specifically so that no single person or institution could accumulate unlimited power. Trump's conduct, as documented in these articles, represents a direct assault on that fundamental constitutional design. The bipartisan nature of the support for impeachment is what makes this moment different from previous efforts to remove Trump from office. In past impeachment proceedings, Republicans stood almost unanimously behind Trump and dismissed the charges as partisan witch hunts. This time, something has shifted. Multiple Republicans have crossed the aisle to support removal, signaling a dramatic fracture in Trump's political coalition that his allies never anticipated. These are not liberal Republicans from blue states who were always uncomfortable with Trump. Some of them are conservatives from solidly red districts who have supported Trump on virtually every policy issue, but have finally concluded that his conduct has crossed lines that cannot be defended. When members of a president's own party start voting for impeachment, the president is in serious trouble regardless of the final outcome. The possibility that lawmakers might invoke the 25th Amendment if impeachment fails adds another layer of uncertainty and drama to this already chaotic situation. The 25th Amendment provides a mechanism for removing a president who is unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office. It was designed primarily for situations involving physical or mental incapacity, but some legal scholars argue it could apply when a president is so erratic or dangerous that he poses a threat to the nation. Cabinet members and the vice president would have to agree to invoke it, which seems unlikely given that they were all appointed by Trump. But the fact that serious people are even discussing this option publicly shows how dire the situation has become. Lawmakers are preparing backup plans in case the impeachment effort fails, and they need another way to remove Trump from power before he does irreparable damage. Capitol Hill is now the site of ongoing protests that show no signs of diminishing, as Americans from across the political spectrum descend on Washington to make their voices heard. On one side, you have crowds demanding Trump's immediate removal, carrying signs and chanting slogans, and pressuring their representatives to vote for impeachment. On the other side, you have Trump supporters who believe the impeachment is an illegitimate coup attempt and who are vowing to defend their president by any means necessary. The Capitol Police are stretched thin trying to maintain order and prevent violent confrontations between these opposing groups. The scenes we are witnessing are reminiscent of some of the darkest moments in recent American history, and there are genuine concerns about what might happen if tensions continue to escalate without some kind of resolution. Now, let me break down what this impeachment crisis means for American democracy and for every citizen who cares about the future of this country. We are at a genuine inflection point where the decisions made in the coming days and weeks will determine whether the constitutional system the founders created can survive a president who refuses to accept any limits on his power. The articles of impeachment that have been filed are not just legal documents. They are a test of whether the separation of powers actually means anything in practice. If a president can defy courts and ignore Congress and launch unauthorized wars and shut down the government without consequence, then the Constitution is just a piece of paper with no real force behind it. The framers knew that their system would only work if there were people willing to enforce it when it came under attack. The political fallout from this impeachment fight is already reshaping the landscape in ways that will affect elections for years to come. Republican leaders in Congress are facing impossible choices between loyalty to Trump and loyalty to the Constitution. And many of them are discovering that those two things have become mutually exclusive. Some are choosing Trump and doubling down on their support regardless of the evidence. Others are breaking away and accepting that their political careers might be over because Trump's base will never forgive them. The Republican Party is fracturing along lines that may be impossible to repair even after Trump is gone. Democrats, meanwhile, are energized and united in a way they have not been in years. But they also face pressure to handle this moment responsibly without overreaching in ways that could backfire politically. The Senate is where this impeachment will ultimately be decided if the House votes to approve the articles and send them for trial. Under the Constitution, the House impeaches, but the Senate convicts. And conviction requires a 2/3 supermajority, which means at least 16 or 17 Republican senators would have to vote to remove Trump from office. That seemed impossible just a few weeks ago when Republicans were standing almost unanimously behind the president. Now, with the fractures we have seen with Republican senators joining Democrats on bipartisan votes to rebuke Trump's overreach, the math looks different. Nobody is predicting that conviction is likely, but nobody is saying it is impossible either. The Senate trial, if it happens, will be the most consequential political event since the Constitutional Convention itself. The 25th Amendment option that lawmakers are discussing as a backup plan reveals just how desperate the situation has become and how seriously people are taking the threat that Trump poses. This mechanism was designed for emergencies where a president becomes suddenly incapacitated, like a stroke or a serious illness. Using it to remove a president for erratic or dangerous behavior would be unprecedented and constitutionally controversial. But the fact that members of Congress are publicly discussing it shows that they believe traditional mechanisms may not be sufficient to address the threat they perceive. They are looking for any tool available to remove Trump from power before he does something that cannot be undone, whether that is starting a war or destroying alliances or permanently undermining democratic institutions. The nationwide impact of this crisis extends far beyond Washington and affects the daily lives of millions of Americans who may feel disconnected from political drama in the Capitol. The government shutdown means federal workers are not getting paid and cannot pay their bills or feed their families. Federal services that people depend on are disrupted or unavailable. The economic uncertainty is causing businesses to hold back on hiring and investment. International partners are questioning whether the United States can be relied upon to honor its commitments. The chaos is not just political theater. It has real consequences for real people who just want their government to function and their country to be stable. Every day this crisis continues, the damage accumulates in ways that will take years to repair. The historical significance of what we are witnessing cannot be overstated, because future generations will look back on this moment and judge how Americans responded to the greatest test of their constitutional system in modern history. Did Congress fulfill its constitutional duty to check a president who violated his oath of office? Did senators put country above party and vote their conscience even when it was politically costly? Did citizens engage peacefully and constructively, or did they resort to violence and intimidation? Did the system bend but ultimately hold, or did it break in ways that fundamentally changed what America is? These questions will be answered by the decisions that get made in the next few weeks and months by lawmakers and voters and citizens across this country. The path forward is uncertain, but the stakes could not be higher for everyone who cares about American democracy and the rule of law. The articles of impeachment have been filed, and the privileged motion means Congress must act before the holiday recess. The House will vote, and every representative will be on record. If impeachment passes, the Senate will hold a trial that the entire world will watch. Trump will fight back with every tool at his disposal, including threats and attacks and attempts to delegitimize the entire process. His supporters will mobilize, and his opponents will mobilize, and the tension will continue to build until some kind of resolution is reached. We are living through history right now, and the outcome is genuinely in doubt. Make sure you stay subscribed to this channel because this impeachment crisis is moving fast, and there will be major developments every single day between now and the deadline that Representative Green has set. The articles have been filed and the countdown has begun. Capitol Hill is in chaos, and the nation is watching. Hit that notification bell because you absolutely do not want to miss what happens next. As Congress confronts the most serious constitutional reckoning in generations, the impeachment papers have dropped and there is no going back. The only question now is whether enough lawmakers will have the courage to follow through and hold a president accountable for high crimes and misdemeanors against the Constitution and the American people.